So before I start, I just have one thing to say. This book, as Sir introduced it, it is related to medical field. So please don't get zoned out. I want to say one thing, even you all have not read this book, you all have read a similar story and you all know a similar story. So when I read it, when I present it, you all will be able to relate to it. And one more thing, I have a small question in the end. So I think to answer that question, you all have to follow it. So I am Dr. Hemamalini from SRTR GMC Ambejogai. I would like to start my book club activity by starting off with the author who wrote the book, Jeremy N. Smith. He is a graduate of Harvard College and University of Montana. Jeremy has written for the Atlantic, Discover, Slate and the New York Times. He and his work has been featured in CNN, NPR, NBC Nightly News, The Today Show and Wired. So Jeremy speaks frequently to diverse national audiences, including Apple, Google, the National Academy of Sciences, the Center for Global Development, the Society of Environmental Journalists and so on. So he is the author of 3 acclaimed narrative books, non-fiction books, namely Breaking and Entering, Growing a Garden City and Epic Measures. So my presentation will be on Epic Measures. Epic Measures is a remarkable chronicle of one of the greatest quests of our time, the groundbreaking program to answer the most essential question for humanity, how do we live and die, and the visionary mastermind behind it. Medical doctor and economist Christopher Murray began the global burden of disease studies to gain a truer understanding of how we live and how we die. While it is one of the largest scientific projects ever attempted, as breathtaking as the first moon landing or human genome project, the questions it answers are meaningful for every one of us. What are the world's health problems? Who do they hurt? How much? Where? And why? Murray argues that ideal existence isn't simply the longest, but the one lived well with least illness. Until we can accurately measure how people live and die, we cannot understand or what to do much to improve it. A charismatic and controversial health maverick has made enemies and some influential friends too, including Bill Gates, who gave Murray a $100 million grant. From ranking countries' healthcare systems to unearthing the shocking reality that world governments are funding developing countries at only 30% of the potential maximum efficiency when it comes to health, Epic Measures introduces a visionary leader whose unwavering determination to improve global health standards has already changed the way the world addresses issues of health and wellness, sets policies and distributes funding. So this was, the gist of the whole thing. Now let me explain it to you in the narrative form, like in the from the point of view of the author, how he starts the book and how he ends the book. So the story starts with a family traveling in a Land Rover, a vehicle. Land Rover crossing the Sahara Desert, heading to Niger's capital Niamey, to a hospital in town of Diffa. These are all name of the places. So who were in the family? First thing was John, who was the dad, who was the head of the family, and mom Annie. Dad John was a doctor, he was a cardiologist, mom was a microbiologist, and they had 3 children. And the hero of the story, that is like initially only we told, Chris Murray, he was just 10 years old when this travel was happening, when the story was started. So he had her elder brother and an elder sister also who travelled along. Why did they travel? Because the dad John, cardiologist, he had a 1-year sabbatical. So what John chose to do was to go to places where they did not have healthcare, to provide healthcare. He did not go alone. He did not take his peers. Instead, he took his family. So they went to this place. What did they find? They spotted a deserted hospital with no electricity, literally no electricity and water, but with lot of patients who needed healthcare. So what happens, he didn't have any other peers to help him, no other doctors to help him. So what does he do? He becomes the chief doctor, he becomes the surgeon, and he, microbiologist, his wife, becomes the head nurse. They take up these positions to run the hospital effectively. And what does this 10-year-old Chris do? He becomes the pharmacist, you know, drug distributor. And the elder brother of Chris becomes the ambulance driver. What is the ambulance? Their own Land Rover. That is the ambulance. So with very few essential medicine, they do not go just like that. They know they are going to provide healthcare, all that. So with very few essential medicines, they reach that place. Very few, much patients, easily they get exhausted. And after that, few incidences also happen which makes you think, okay, that I leave it for you to go read. Maybe this will, you know, kindle your mind. Okay, later on, they notice increase of cases of malaria. Malaria is a disease, everybody knows. They just did not notice malaria is increasing. They also noticed that in that particular hospital, patients who get admitted, not because of malaria, also tend to acquire malaria. So then they started to think how this is happening. So then what did they do? They started to do a small research on it. And what did they find? They found that for all the sick patients, what is being given? Even anybody who gets admitted in a hospital due to a sickness, it will be multivitamins will be given. Okay, so multivitamin which had iron rich iron content. What they found was, because all the patients, irrespective of they have malaria or not, they are taking iron tablets. So what is this malaria parasite Plasmodium? It is getting attracted to the rich iron content in the blood, so which is causing malaria. This is what they discovered. Okay, so the family goes to a place. Healthcare needs are there. They provide healthcare needs. Not just provide healthcare needs, they explore, they research. Also, what do? They publish the article in the Lancet. So now, are you able to relate to something here? Okay. So the family also publishes their findings in prestigious British journal, the Lancet. Later, Chris Murray grows. He joins Harvard. And whom does he meet? He meets another friend of his, like Alan Lopez. Alan Lopez was already working in WHO by that time in Geneva. So Alan Lopez had this quest in his mind that there is somewhere reporting mistake is going on, like number of deaths are being reported wrongly. And the same question was there in Chris Murray's mind also. A 10-year-old boy, he goes to work, he is not playing, like, he is not doing meaningless stuffs, he is going and serving the people. So his mind then only started to think in a different way. So similar different thought arises in his mind. Number of deaths are being reported wrongly, so what do I do for it? And they both, be like-minded people, they both started working together. So Chris, this one point is very important. Chris strongly believed if reporting of the disease is not right, allocation of resources won't be right. If reporting is not done rightly, real disease burden in a particular country cannot be known. If we do not know where we are heading to, how do we even comment on which route to take? So he not only finds that data is insufficient, but also finds that data is skewed, matlab manipulated, to justify ineffective work and funding. Also finds a lot of discrepancies between UN data and WHO data. So he developed a tool to measure global burden of disease using DALI. DALI means disability adjusted life years, which is calculated by adding years of life lost due to premature mortality and years of life lost due to disability. I will just explain it very shortly. So he is developing a tool to measure the global burden of disease by what? DALI. What is DALI? Disability adjusted life years. And through what is he measuring it? Using two parameters. Those two parameters are years of life lost. Okay. So that is due to premature mortality. Meaning, if you were had your life expectancy is, for example, 86 years, but you die before 70, then 16 years is lost, means premature mortality is happening. Understood? That's called premature mortality. Mortality means death. And years of life lost due to disability. Years of life lost due to disability means during your lifetime you develop a disability, might be anything, stroke, depression or anything. So due to that disease, how many years of life you lose is called years of life lost. So by adding these two parameters, we get disability adjusted life years. So he used this to to measure global burden of disease. This is what he did. So by this time, Chris Murray was a part of WHO. Since he pointed out mistakes of influential people, he was pushed out of WHO. This is what happens when you point out influential people. You will not be there in the system. So this should not, demotivate you or something. His thoughts were very clear and his actions were right. So what happened? Bill Gates enters this picture here. So what does he do? He grants him $100 million for this project, for whatever project he has proposed. So this is the whole of the story in a narrative point of view also. Coming to my learnings and reflections, from a doctor's point of view, I understand how to really help humanity, how to work and benefit larger number of people. We need to know how every disease and illness impacts on a larger scale. For example, my learning I would like to say, if I see 10 patients with anxiety one day, and in a week I see 30 patients, and I keep repetitively seeing. So should my work be superficial, that I see the patient, diagnose, right diagnosis, right treatment, right follow-up? No. I should be able to think, okay, these much of patients I am seeing on a monthly basis or weekly basis, why this repetition is happening, and is this having an impact globally also, nationally also? So I should be able to think, and always my personal learnings, I should be able to record the data. And so that's the thing. So I should be able to see a larger picture of the scenario as to what disease burden it can have and how to minimize it. Since I am from the Department of Community Medicine, which works directly in policy making too, reading this book was an eye-opener for me. Instead of treating a specific disease, we need to treat people and their ever-changing problems. This might actually help in, for tomorrow's exercise also, for our thinking. Instead of treating specific disease, we need to treat people and their ever-changing problems. John Murray was the dad of Chris. He states that in the story, Chris got addicted to working hard. He never have to be pushed. As a dad, he didn't have to do much to make Chris to put in the right path. He got addicted to working hard. So what was my learning from this line? If we want to achieve big, then work put in for the same must be bigger, is what I learned. So another learning was about the significance of data and right reporting, as it guides us to seek solution to the problem. Also, most importantly, makes it easier to find the problem in its first place. One anonymous quote, man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose the sight of the shore. I learned that if we don't come out of our comfort zone, new learnings and achievements need to keep waiting. It need to be kept waiting. So another anonymous quote, never underestimate the power of thought. It is the greatest path to discovery. So directing thoughts to positivity and productivity makes it much easier to reach our goals. So yeah, coming to the question, was the whole story relatable? Little bit. How? Except Amrit sir, anybody can answer. Dada. Okay. Answer? Everybody knows the answer. Tell me, was it relatable? How?
Comfort zone part was relatable.
Yeah, comfort zone part relatable, right. Was the story relatable? A family goes to a place where they need healthcare needs. Very right. I also felt the same. Initially only when I started reading the book, I started to feel everything is so relatable, and in the middle they do the research, publish the same article in Lancet also. So everything was very relatable. I think it will be a very good read for you also. It's not like only medical people can relate to this book. No, anybody can relate to this book. The author who wrote was not a medical professional. So I think it will be a very nice read if you all try to give it a read. I would like to conclude with this quote by Carl Sagan. Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. Thank you.